Hey there, third grade. This is Mr. Campbell. Now, today we're going to be starting on page 337. This is our new topic, topic 9, and today we're going to be doing 9.1 use partial sums to add. All right, at the end of today, we want you to be able to say, I can use place value to break apart and add numbers. All right, that is our focus for today. Now, if you take a look down here, this is actually a pretty important piece right down here. All right. Now, when we write a number like 321, we've got our different place values, right? What this means is that we've got our ones place, our tens place, and our hundreds place. And we can use these place value blocks in order to do those different parts. So right here, this one right here is called a cube, all right? And so we've got our cube here, and those represent the ones place. So in this case, I've got one of those. Next up is our straight. This is called the straight. And the reason for that is, you guessed it, it is just a straight column. Now, if I counted these, I would count that there's 10. And that's because this is the tens place. Can you guess how many of these ones cubes I would need to stack up to make a straight? I hope you said 10, because that makes sense, right? We would need 10 ones to make a 10 straight. Well, when I draw these, I'm going to go ahead and just draw them kind of like this. They're just some rectangles. And actually, when I draw my cubes, I usually don't put this much detail in it. Usually I just draw a little square like that. All right. So I had one cube, I had two straights, and now I'm over to my hundreds. And so my hundreds is 10 of these tens put together. So when I have 10 of these straights all together, it makes 100, and we call this a flat. So we've got our cubes, our straights, and our flats. And so when I come up here, I can draw my flats, just trying to draw 3 squares. This one's not a great square. There we go. It's a little bit better. All right. I've got my 3 flats. Now, what this actually means is, how many hundreds do I have? Well, I've got 100, 200, 300. How many 10 straights do I have? 10, 20. I've got 20. 2 tens is 20. And then how many ones cubes do I have? Well, I only have one of those. I took my number 321 and I broke it down into each of those place values. And the reason that this can be really helpful is if I was adding another number like 246, all right, I could draw my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could draw my 4 straights, and I could draw my 2 flats. And you might be saying, why is that helpful, Mr. Campbell? Well, the reason is I can then go, how many hundreds do I have? Well, I've got 100, 200. How many of my straights do I have? 10, 20, 30, 40. How many of my ones do I have? Well, I've got 6 ones. And the reason this becomes a lot easier is because I see I've got zeros in these place values. So I can put 0, 0. What's 300 plus 200 is 500. What's 20 plus 40? Well, 2 plus 4 is 6. And we're talking about 10, so it's 60. What's 1 plus 6 is 7. And then watch what I can do. I can just bring down my numbers. 321 plus 246 is 567. And this is partial sums. All partial sums mean is we break it apart based on the place value. So it's really important that we know our place values as we're working on these. Well, let's go ahead and turn over to page 338 and check out what we've got up here. So I'll put 338. Now, if you're not there with me already, please get there right now. Pause the video, grab a pencil, because we're going to jump right in. It says Margot counted 243 manatees one year and 179 manatees the next. How many manatees did Margot count altogether? So here we've got 243, and then we have 179. All right. Now, in our last chapter, we talked about estimating, and the first part we want to do is just do a quick estimate. All right. Well, if I'm doing a quick estimate, I'm going to go ahead and circle my largest number and underline the place value behind it. The 4 is below 5, so it tells the 2 to stay at a 2, and then everything else becomes zeros. My 1 is here. The 7 is going to be bossy and tell it to go up to a 2, and then I have 2 zeros. So 200 plus 200 is 400. The sum is about 400 manatees. We just try to get so there's just one quick and easy number, all right? And our estimating can help us with that. Well, now we can come down here and say, all right, let's try breaking this apart, all right? So here we'll start with our hundreds place. So I've got 200 plus 100, and that's because that's my hundreds place. What's 200 plus 100 is 300. Next, I have my tens. I have 4 tens, and I have 7 tens. What's 4 plus 7 is 11, and it's in the tens place, so 110. And then lastly, I've got 3 plus 9. Well, 9 plus 3 more is 12. And if I add those together, 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 plus 1 plus 1 is 2. And 3 plus 1 is 4. So, 422 manatees. We can also decide if we wanted to just start with our ones place, which is what we're going to see over here in box D. And so we said 3 plus 9 is 12. And then when I move over here, I put a 0 in my ones place because now I'm in the tens place. 4 plus 7 is 11. And then I'm in my hundreds place, so I put a 0 in the ones and in the tens. And 2 plus 1 is 3. And now I can just add these together. 2 plus 0 is 2. 1 plus 1 plus 0 is 2. 1 plus 3 is 4. So now we can say, all right, so 422 manatees is how many she actually saw. Does our estimate make sense? We estimated that it would be about 400. So does our estimate make sense if it was 422? Yeah, that checks out because they are pretty close. So we would say that is a reasonable estimation. All right, let's go ahead and go over to page 339, and I'll put that right here, 339. All right, and we're going to start right up here with number 3. All right, now it does say estimate the sum. All right, so if I were to, I'm going to use my space up here real quick. If I were to write out 365, and I want to estimate that, all right, that means I want to estimate to this number right here, which means I'm going to circle right there. Okay. The 6 is going to be bossy to the 3. Now, if my number is 5 or greater, this 3 is going to go up. Well, it's a 6. So my 3 becomes a 4. And then you notice this is a 0. Everything behind it becomes a 0 too. So my 365, I estimated to be about 400. And now we've got 422. All right. And so when I circle here, the 2, is that a 5 or bigger? No, which means that this is going to stay right here. Well, that means that the numbers behind it are actually going to turn into zeros. What's 400 plus 400? 800. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to write my estimate, 800. And I'm going to circle it so that way I've got my estimate. All right. Well, now that we've done our estimate, now we can actually solve this. Let's go ahead and start with our ones place first. All right, our ones place. And for this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more for us, just so it's a little bit bigger. Our ones place is over here, so 5 plus 2. 5 plus 2. Well, if I have 5 and I have 6, 7. All right. Now I'm going to go to my tens place. And I'm going to see here, well, I've got all these straights here. I could count those. Or I can say, well, how many is that? Well, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So when I write here, I'm going to write 80 underneath there. And this is just helping me to use each of my place values. Next, I go to my hundreds place, and I've got 300 plus 400. Well, that's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. And the reason that I write it out like this is because those are each of those place values, right? Well, what's 7 plus 0 plus 0? And I need to make sure that I line up all my place values. Well, that's going to be 7. And then in my tens place, I've got 8 plus 0. Well, that's 8. And then I have nothing plus 7, so that's 7. My answer is 787. Is that pretty close to 800? It sure is, right? That's pretty close. So we would say that this is a reasonable estimate. All right. Let's go ahead and slide down here. We're going to jump over to number 5. And I would like for you to do number 5 on your own. All right. Now, before we do that, let's do our estimate. And I will stick with you for your estimate. All right. Because that still is kind of a tricky concept. So we're going to underline the largest place value, which would be our hundreds place. And that means I'm going to circle the numbers who are just behind there. All right. Now, if it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the number goes up. If it's a 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, the number stays the same. So let's see here. 5, and there's a 5 that's circled. The 5 is going to tell this one to go up. So it's going to go up one number, and then anything that's circled and behind it becomes a 0. So we've estimated it to be about 600. And then here I've got a 4, and the 2 is going to be bossy. Well, is it going to tell it to stay the same or go up? Well, it needs to be a 5 or higher to go up. Is this 2 a 5 or higher? No. So that means it's going to stay the same. And then everything behind it turns to zeros. Well, now that I've done that, I can add this up. What's 6 plus 4? Oh, that's right. It's 10, which means, my estimate is going to be about 1,000. All right. Well, will you go ahead and write out yours? And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. All right. I'm going to ask you to start with our hundreds, then our tens, and then our ones, and then add it all together. All right. So hundreds, tens, ones, and then find out what our actual answer is. Pause your video and do that now. All right, I hope you paused your video and solved that part because we're going to go ahead and solve that now. So I told you to start with your hundreds place. Well, that's 500 plus 400 is 900. And then I'm going to move over to my tens place, and I've got 50 plus 20. 50 plus 20 is 70. And then I've got my ones place. So 0 plus 3 is 3. All right. When I add all this up, 0 plus 3, that's a 3. 0 plus 7 is 7. And 9 plus nothing is 9. So my answer is 973. Last question I have. Does that make sense with my estimate? Yeah, they're about the same, aren't they? So that checks out. Well, I have one last problem that I want you to work on with me. And we're going to solve number 11 together. And the reason I want to solve number 11 together is because they didn't give us those place value blocks anymore, did they? No. But I'm going to solve this the same way. All right? So what I like to do is I like to underline what I'm doing first. So I'm going to start in the ones place. So underline these with me. The ones place in both of them. 3 plus 5 is my ones. Well, 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay? I'm going to put a little rectangle around my tens place. 6 plus 1. Well, 60 plus 10 is 70. And then I'm going to circle my biggest one. And 400 plus 300 is 700. And you might have noticed, hey, Mr. Campbell, you didn't do your estimate. That's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and solve this one. So in my ones place, 8 plus 0 is 8. In my tens place, 7 plus 0 is 7. And then in my hundreds place, nothing plus 7 is 7. So my answer would be 778. I still did my partial sums, which means I break them apart by place value as I add them together. All right? Well, that is all that I have got for you guys today. I hope that this is starting to click for you and make more and more sense. Remember, when we do our estimates, we underline the number that we're estimating to, circle the one behind it, and if it's 5 or higher, it goes up. If it's 4 or less, it stays the same. Then we add each place value together to find what our total is. Then we compare the two together. All right, third grade, that's all that we've got for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.